Welcome to the Red Ink Revival Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Norris. We're going to grow your leadership through neuroscience, psychology, and theology. Welcome, everybody, to the Red Ink Revival Leadership Podcast. In today's episode, I'm continuing with one of the most important factors for successful leaders. It's the concept of self-differentiation. The past 4 episodes have focused on these concepts, starting with episode 92, which was titled The Leader's Kryptonite, Emotional Fusion Versus Differentiation, which gives a context for the entire series. Here's the deal. Anxiety issues are a reality for all of us. As leaders, anxiety shows up in both overt ways and in covert ways. Anxiety is actually like a virus. It's invisible, but when it presents itself, it's completely debilitating. And what's worse is that anxiety is contagious. As a virus, it goes viral. Anxiety is transmissible. It can become a complete pandemic in the organization or the relationships. Often in boardrooms, staff meetings, or even families, the one with the biggest, highest level of anxiety will control the direction and the effectiveness of the entire meeting. Below the surface are anxieties that look like motives, agendas, and inflexibility. For others, the anxieties present as verbal dominance. These are the bulldozers that always get the last word. Yet others present anxieties by passivity and quietness. They're the ones who notoriously have the meeting after the meeting and are known for gossiping behind the teammates' backs, all of which is contaminating the entire organization from the top down. As leaders, we tend to focus on hard skill development and the giftings within people to get our initiatives into the black. And too often we neglect the most powerful tools that are focused on the emotional processing our teammates are managing and why they are presenting themselves, their content, and their passions the way they are. Anxiety shouldn't be thought of as just big expressions. Anxiety can be very subtle. It can be presented covertly. It appears as mild irritations, frustrations, maybe even eye-rolling, gossip, blame, and so much more. As Steve Cuss defines it, differentiation is the ability to be fully yourself while being fully connected to people. It is gaining clarity on where I end and the other begins. A differentiated person allows space between himself or herself and another, even when that other person is highly anxious or asking for a rescue. A differentiated leader is clear on his or her own values and convictions and is not ever going to be easily swayed from them. Differentiation is not about neglecting content, what is being said, but adding the ability to pay close attention to process, how people are relating, and perhaps most powerfully, how they are affecting your own anxiety. This is verbal content versus emotional processing. If you've wondered why you can't seem to get the wins you work so hard for, or why the family, team, or organization can't seem to get the wins, even after training with conferences, consultants, books, podcasts, mentors, this episode series is something you got to go back and listen to over and over again. Now, it's important to note, self-differentiation doesn't fix anxiety or stop it. Self-differentiation is a tool that helps you manage and reduce anxiety in yourself, and then to bring and be a calm presence of change in a group, team, or family. In my opinion, self-differentiation is the greatest and by far the most effective, skillful tool you can use to manage anxiety. The concepts are deeply and repetitively scriptural. They are fundamental to creation. They are demonstrated and modeled by Jesus himself. Self-differentiation requires us to grow in individuation, our sense of self, and honor to show up with our own clear definition of who we are, what we want, and what we believe. But individuation without being connected to others is isolation. And ironically, a primary symptom of anxiety is below the surface of all isolationism. Self-differentiation also requires connection to others. However, connection without individuation is actually fusion or enmeshment. This is a state where we are emotionally one with others. Our emotional thermostat is set by their emotions. We fear abandonment, so we fuse. Emotional fusion is also a symptom of anxiety below the surface, as well as showing up in all of our relationships. Self-differentiation doesn't mean that we are closed off from opposing ideas. Actually, for a person to be self-differentiated, they desire to make effort and not abandon those who have opposing beliefs. Self-differentiation begins with self-definition, or it's our identity. In the last 3 episodes, we walked through the art, A-R-T, of identity. A is for awareness of emotional processes in the present and the root systems originating from our childhood. And then R, in art, is for responsibility for our own emotional states, realizing that projections of blame and excuses for our own emotional states is an escape from our own management fragility. We're escaping from what we have management of. T in art is truth. Truth is our decisive commitment to values, convictions, goals, beliefs, opinions, etc. This is the art of self-definition or identity. This is the foundation of self-differentiation, or holding both individuation and connection together. So today we begin looking at the next 2 layers of self-differentiation, and we add SY to art. Art C, A-R-T, now SY. The SY layers are about self-regulation. This is where we manage emotions as we show up as our true selves while staying connected to others. Maybe you have a difficult conversation with a teammate that you're going to have happening tomorrow. You feel the dread. You sit there thinking about what you're going to say and what you think the person you're going to meet with, is going to say in response, and how he might be irritated, detached, and even leave the organization. You need him in the role. If he's not in the role, so many things could fall apart. He's influential with others and could infect them with discontentment, even swaying them to harshly judge your leadership incompetence. And so, as a result, you sit questioning whether you should bring up the topic at all or simply let issues go, no matter how unhappy you are or how his attitudes and behaviors are undermining the fruitfulness of the entire organization. And you feel this growing tension, the anxieties and stress, as you consider that standing up is actually loving the person to honor them with your true self. And so standing up truly is loving other people in the organization. Not just the individual, but actually everybody in the organization, because you're advocating for what is best for all, what you believe and are committed to, for the health and the success of all. And you're risking the fact your beliefs and judgments may actually end up being wrong. And as you sit in the tension between the standing up or screwing up, standing up, screwing up, standing up, screwing up, the tension, anxiety, and stress forges you into either an anxious, individuated dictator or a panicked, fused negotiator. Again, you're sitting in this either or tension, and you begin to forge into either becoming an anxious, individuated dictator or a panicked, fused negotiator. And if you have ever been in this position, you've probably bounced back and forth between being more assertive or letting go of things you were hired to handle. It's your job to use your judgment and make certain calls. Otherwise, you wouldn't be the leader of the team or the leader of the church or the leader of the organization. To not show up authentically is to abandon job responsibility. Maybe you have sought strategic means. This is what we often do for being more assertive, to better stand up for yourself. But we can come up with these false means to protect our heart. So maybe we build better rules, or create more extensive job descriptions, or have preemptive explanations written out, hoping that teammates are going to get it. You know, the whole get it, they get it. We hope that they're going to get it without us having to correct or give individual guidance. And you may have even been told, or you have told yourself, you should stop being a people pleaser. And you watch other leaders actually execute leadership with presence. And you're so inspired by it, but you find yourself too scared of doing what it takes in order to clarify and speak up for what you expect of individuals. Welcome to the Red Ink Revival Leadership Podcast. My name is Patrick Norris, and I am a husband, father, pastor of 35 years, and a strategic therapeutic mentor to leaders in all arenas of life. I am an inerrantist, a Calvinist Arminian betweenist, a Holy Spirit continuist, and a finished work of Christ redemptionist. Red Ink Revival was designed to create a revival in the heart, soul, and brains of Christian leaders from all spheres of influence. Our team of pastors, psychologists, and therapists facilitate our life-changing leadership, personal growth, and emotional wholeness experiences. Our goal is to bring a revival, an integrated wholeness to pastors, church staff, the local church, and the universal Big C church around the world. This includes marketplace leaders, educators, foster adoptive parents, and so much more. If this podcast is providing value to you, would you consider subscribing to it wherever you get your podcast? Also, please like the episodes, comment on them, and share them on your social media feeds. And one more big favor. If you like the show, please go review it at Apple. And if it's true of you, give us 5 stars. Now let's go back to this week's episode. Maybe the roles are reversed. You are the subordinate, the employee, or the teammate under a leader. And the risk of standing up is forever tormenting you with anxious tension. What if my idea is wrong after all? What if they don't think I'm a team player? What if they move me to another team? What if I get fired? How will we financially make it on our own? So we accommodate without showing up as our true selves. No doubt standing up with courage for what we believe, that is how we see the world, our convictions and our opinions, and not backing down to other people's reactivity is common to so many people, so many leaders. A huge and sobering reality that we must face is this: the issue is not fundamentally about learning technical skills for communication. In marriage, this really bugs me in the church world where we give nickel and dime answers for $1 million questions. We teach people all the skills around communication, but in fact, anxiety is disrupting everything. The issue is actually it's actually about the management of emotional anxiety we feel below the surface. And the best communication skills are going to be hijacked by anxious energy pumping out words of our mouth in the name of communication. So here's the deal. This is a cost. There's always a cost to not standing up or showing up as our true selves. Compromising our value system, convictions, perspectives, beliefs, and opinions is dishonoring to the gift of God's creation and the work that He's done in our hearts and souls. You see, you and I, we're made in God's image as an image bearer. We have the glory of God in us. We have the grace of God in us. And God made us as an individual. I want you to think about that. You were created as an individual. Uniquely you. There's no one like you. There never has been one like you. There will never be another one like you. You are an individual. And when God created the first individual, as in Adam, He named him Adam so that he would be separate from Eve. He named Adam and Eve, and He demonstrated the uniqueness of each, individuated them from one another, so that both Adam and Eve were to bear God's image, yet to do it in ways completely unique to the individual and unique from each other. When we stuff our true self in hopes of accommodating others, we're actually denying God's image in us. We will consistently live in conflict and tension within ourselves simply because we are betraying original design and creation. We're going to feel these waves of frustration, dissatisfaction, and irritation, disillusionment as we move through environments, relationships, and overall life. And here's the deal. Even prayer can't fix it unless the prayer is God speaking to you to finally stand up, show up, let your true self be seen and presented. If you don't do that, you can pray until the cows come home, whatever that means. You can pray with all your heart and soul, and as you do, you won't see results until you align with the laws that govern the universe. And God created you as an individual to be seen and known. So you can't stuff your true self without it incurring a cost to your heart, soul, and brain. More of the cost for not standing up would be things like this. The relationship is going to remain weak, unable to grow. The team you serve on and the organization overall is going to be limited. Your gifts will be unable to grow. The gifts will be unable to grow. Not just the relationship, but now down into who you are, your gifts will be unable to grow, being unseen and never tested or actually mentored. Hurts and resentments will continue to happen. As Brene Brown famously says, I'd rather disappoint you than resent you. Here's what we know, that when we don't show up as our true selves, we begin to resent everybody around us. I would rather disappoint you than resent you. Powerful, powerful statement. Another thing of cost is your mental health. It will be diminished. And you'll be diminished in your mental health while you're praying for God to fix it. Your leaders and teammates will never be given the opportunity for growth because you don't show up and you don't challenge status quo. You don't bring your graces into the environment. Then the whole team suffers. And even your teammates don't get the privilege of growth. All your relationships, the cost is that all your relationships will be less rewarding for you. You won't even enjoy them as much because you're bouncing around with irritation, frustration, and resentment. Or here's another cost. You'll find yourself blaming others and developing excuses for yourself. Or you'll find yourself acting in raging or passive manners that you resent within yourself. In other words, the way you live your life, you're not enjoying you any longer because there's conflict. And then number 10, another thing that'll cost you is you'll blame God for your crappy life, though he isn't culpable for any of it. But not only are there costs, but there are rewards. Here's some rewards. The rewards for standing up or showing up as your true self. You honor the image of God in you, which is an act of worship. You live empowered, and you gain the benefits biochemically of dopamine circuits. This is the feel-good chemical. This is what causes you to be focused and be able to have biological empowerment to do something. And then you, as a reward, will help teams and environments maximize wins. And boy, it feels good when you maximize wins. You'll help teammates, even leaders, become the best version of themselves, even if you're leading up in this case, when you are showing up as your true self, honest but connected, individuated, but again, present. What you're doing is you're offering everybody the opportunity to present the best version of themselves. Another reward, your gifts and talents are offered validation. Your gifts and talents, because you showed up truly with them, you are offered validation or vetting and mentorship for growth. Your relationships, another reward, your relationships become honest, free, and rewarding. You'll live without the constant tension of what if, springing peace from the depths of your soul. Again, this tension of what if I had shown up? What if I had presented? What if I had given my authentic, transparent self? Well, peace would have come from the depths of your soul. Another reward, you would live out the best version of you without pretense or false superpowers. A lot of things that we project, a lot of the packaging around us, a lot of the hyper, I'm charismatic, I'm present, or I'm quiet. A lot of these things are nothing but pretense. It's just armor. It's just us having Thor's hammer. We think that it's actually where our power lies, and it is a lie. And then number 9, you return to physical health, strength, and human flourishing as stress levels dramatically reduce. Or number 10, you live in authentic connection to God without disruptions from false characterizations of God. So, why do we not stand up? If all this is true, if there are great costs to us for not standing up or showing up, and great benefits for showing up, why do we feel the resistance about actually showing up? Well, let me give you 10 different ideas. I believe that one of the first reasons that we don't show up is fear that the conflict will end with rejection and abandonment, or fear the risk of loss, like the loss of financial security, will happen. Or we fear we won't be able to reinvent or recreate what was lost. Or we fear what a new loss, that a new loss and the associated grief that comes with it will remind us of previous griefs in our lives that we really wish to avoid. Or we fear that new losses will validate our own suspicions, our deepest fears, that we're really not good enough, worthy, or competent. I think another reason we don't show up is because we fear the risk of loss, the loss of whatever, will put us in conflict with self and inspire a sense of self-hatred, which could be intolerable. We fear the damaging of our reputation and being unhireable or unusable or unuseful. We have a fear of being made fun of, mocked, diminished, or labeled that guy. Fill in the blank, whoever that guy is. Or we have a fear of disappointing those we need. Not just the ones that we are having a conversation with, but even the observers in our life, people that are family, friends, and colleagues. And they ask the question, how come you're no longer on that team? How come you no longer are leading in that spot? The idea that we would disappoint them is sometimes intolerable. It's overwhelming. Or here's a big one for a lot of my clients, the fear of disappointing God for any flaw or imperfection we demonstrated when we stood up. That if we stand up and we don't do it flawlessly and perfectly, then we'll disappoint God. We'll disappoint God. I just want to remind you, God's the one who has framed up we're imperfect. We are flawed. We live in a fallen world, and nothing we're going to do is going to fix that by outperforming our flawlessness. It's not possible.
Hey, have you ever wanted to explore how your backstory is influencing your present story? Have you ever wondered why you were driven the way you were driven, or why you want the things you so deeply want, or why you might be triggered the way you're triggered? Maybe there's something in your life that keeps derailing you or exposing the fractures in your heart and soul. At Red Ink Revival, I facilitate groups of 6 to 10 men or 6 to 10 ladies in an exploration process that includes worksheets, tools for discovery, and insights into personal motivations, torments, and reactions. And it's all done online through Zoom in a short 6-week experience. Now don't worry, you won't be required to share anything you don't want to. Your story is yours to share when and where you're ready. But first, you owe it to yourself to know what that story actually is. Our alumni report having life-changing experiences and integrations in all spheres of life. They report it actually felt like they entered into a revival. They even say they now lead others like never before as they instinctively map their teammates' own story considerations. We're developing groups specific for individual classifications like senior pastors or spouses, church staff, educators, foster adoption parents, marketplace leaders, and churches at large. Go to redinkrevival.com and find the events tab to learn more.
So when we talk about all of this showing up and standing up, it's important to look at assertiveness versus aggressiveness. So standing up is bringing out your true self. This is synonymous with assertiveness. Assertiveness is a commitment to be seen for who we really are without requiring anything of anyone else in terms of validation, acceptance, or pleasure. Assertiveness manages you. Aggressiveness attempts to manage the other. Attempts, because you can't manage the other, but it attempts to manage or control the other. So what does assertive mean? Assertive means decisive presentation without requiring specific reaction. A decisive presentation of me without requiring a specific reaction of you. Assertive means confidence without arrogance. Assertive means strength without dominance. Assertive means contrasting dialogue, that we are back and forth exploring ideas, but without forceful debate. Contrasting dialogue without forceful debate. Assertive means calm emotional presence to share perspectives. A calm emotional presence to share perspectives. Now that is in contrast to aggressive. Aggressive means success requires the other's adaptation and adoption and fusion with who we are. Aggressive means arrogance and control. Aggressive means showing up is not enough. Winning is required. Aggressive means all disagreement must lead to ultimate emotional unity with the person who is trying to get you to agree with them. Aggressive means big emotional projections to get agreement and alignment. So when we contrast assertive and aggressive, assertive means others can disagree and even detach. Aggressive means I must be agreed with and I must control others' detachment. Assertive comes from a calming presence inside. Aggressive comes from an anxious presence inside. Assertive comes from internal management of energy. I'm looking internally for my management of energy. Aggressive comes from external management of energy. Now I don't look to the inside. I fix it with mechanisms. I fix it with behaviors, and I fix it by getting compliance from relationships. Assertive is me showing up. Aggressive is me attacking. Assertive is focusing on me showing up, while aggressive is focusing on others, fixing, changing, and or fearing them. Now, it's amazing to me as we look in Scripture how much the Scripture actually speaks to this idea of standing up and presenting your true self. One of my most sobering and in-your-face scriptures that I personally have benefited from is James chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. And it's the King James Version because I like the way it was written. Who is a wise man? So we're talking about somebody who's wise. Wise versus a foolish man. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out, or maybe in our context, may they show up, stand up, in a good conversation or a life reputation, with his works or the behaviors and patterns, with meekness and unforced meekness of wisdom. Now I want you to consider this. He says, show up, and show up with a good reputation. Good reputation just means that you are a person who consistently shows up with your true self. You're doing this as a pattern of life. The things that you believe, the things that are your opinions, right or wrong, you're honest, and you do it without forcing that on anybody else. There is a meekness about you of wisdom. And then this is an amazing statement that follows that up in contrast. So the only other way, if you don't show up or stand up, is you'll do verse 14, but you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts. So what is envy? If we think of covetousness, is I desire what you have in possessions, your possessions I want, that's covetousness. What if envying is I want your choices, I want your agreement, I want to control what you think or believe or feel about a given thing. And envy is doing things strategically and manipulatively to get what you want, even if it violates their own sense of self. If you have bitter envying, and then he uses the word strife, envy and strife. What is strife? I always thought as a Christian growing up in my early years that it was somebody who's angry all the time and fighting everybody. But what if strife is about striving? What if striving is about, I cannot be happy until you see it the way I see it. I'm striving with you to get into my belief system, into my perspective, into my alignment. Wherever there is bitter envying and strife, there's always going to be problems. He says that you can either stand up, show up with who you really are, and use your lifetime of showing up and all of the behaviors and patterns of being peaceful and calm presence. And you do this with meekness and unforced wisdom. You're not forcing anybody in any direction. But the contrast is that you're going to show up with bitter envying and strife if you're not showing up as your true self and fully differentiated, allowing there to be connection, but on the other hand, refusing to require fusion. So if you show up with bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and then he says, lie not against the truth. You're denying truth. You're denying reality as you're trying to get everybody so forcefully to move into what you think and believe. Verse 15, this wisdom descends not from above, but is earthly. It's sensual. It's based in the five physical senses. It's external. It's you judging based on the anxieties in other people. And then he says it's devilish. So when you live in envy and strife, trying to get people to come your direction, it's earthly, it's sensual, and it's devilish. And then he says this, for where there is envy and strife, there is confusion and every evil work. Isn't that crazy? And so you can say, devil, I rebuke you. You can take authority over the enemy, and you can pray and pray and pray and ask God to fix it. But until you stand up and be self-differentiated with meekness, kindness, connectedness, but individuated, until you do that, you're going to have confusion internally, and the teams and the organization that you serve in is going to have confusion, and there will be every evil work. So obviously, your best efforts. It doesn't matter if you go to consultants. It doesn't matter if you have conferences, you read books, listen to podcasts. None of that stuff is going to fix this issue of anxiety dwelling in a heart and there being confusion in every evil work through bitter and envy and strife. Then he says, verse 17, but the wisdom that is from above is pure. It's peaceable. So you're self-differentiated. You're individuated but connected. It's peaceable. It's whole. There's nothing broken, nothing missing. Because I don't need you for me to have peace. I don't need you to agree with me. I don't need you to care about what I have to say. You can mock me. You can say whatever you want to say. You can find a water cooler and go after it. You can gossip, but I can find peace because I show up as self-differentiated. I'm me, you're you, I know where I end and you begin, and I'm able, through mercy, to stay connected. So he says here that the wisdom that's from above is not this envy and strife, it's pure, it's peaceable, it's gentle, and the word gentle, it means considerate. It's considerate of other people. And it's easy to be entreated, it's submissive. And then I love this, it's full of mercy, it's connected. It cares about the people and good fruits, he says, without partiality. You don't have to play partiality, not partiality to one person in the room, to one family member, or even be partial to the other person over you or you over them. What you do is say, I'm just showing up as to who I am. And then I love this last part, that the wisdom that's from above is pure, peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy, without partiality, and then this, and without hypocrisy.
How would you like to reboot your personal finances this year? How would you like to take control of your money, turning small wins into big results? I want to encourage you to check out my wife Tina's financial coaching business at tinanorris.org. You might be wondering, what is a financial coach? A coach is someone who will personally team up with you to outline financial goals, inspire you with energy, help you stay focused on your goals, and so much more. You can do it all through Zoom, and she provides a free initial consultation, so there's no pain or cost to you for your first steps. Maybe you've been to several Financial Peace University cycles, left with great intentions, but struggled to execute. You need a trainer, a coach, another human that won't shame or judge you to help you stay on track. She works with clients that are single parents, everyday people, pastors and church staff, as well as high-income professionals. If you have friends, church members, clients, or even young marrieds that are launching their financial lives, you'll do them all a favor to have them check out this amazing option. If professional athletes need a coach to win the day to fulfill their dreams, then you and I do too. And you won't find anybody better to help you get there than Tina Norris. Set up your free consultation from anywhere in the world today. Go to tinanorris.org to find out all the details.
The word hypocrite comes from a Greek word that means a stage actor. In other words, I don't have to use mechanisms. I don't have to use armor. I don't have to present ideas of who I am or act in ways that cause people to think one thing of me when deep inside I'm boiling over with anxiety. The wisdom from above is you're no longer a stage actor. You get to present who you really are. And it says the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. So good, guys, so good. Another one is Matthew 18:15 and Matthew 5:23 through 24. 18:15 says, in specific, if a brother sins against you, go tell him his fault. Go to him. If he hears you, you gained a brother. Matthew 5 says, if your brother has something against you, you go to him. So there's 2 times that you initiate showing up. You stand up, you go. You stay connected, but you stay individuated. There's 2 times you do that. You do that when somebody offends or sins against you, or when you know that your brother has something against you, something that you've done that they perceive against them. And the scripture says to first be reconciled to the brother, and then you can come and worship God with your gifts. Reminds you of Ephesians 4:15, to speak the truth. Be real, be authentic. Let reality come forth in love. Love is connectedness. Truth in love is that I'm individuated. Love is I'm connected so that I can grow. You can't grow if you don't show up. Showing up in a commitment to who you are and what you believe, it now then gives you opportunity to grow. In Exodus, if you'll remember the call upon Moses, God goes to him in a fiery bush and he begins to talk to him about his calling to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt and the slave bondage that they were in. And it says, this is God speaking, come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh. And ultimately, you'll deliver the people of Israel. Moses, his first response is, well, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? Or that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? And what Moses ends up saying is, oh, my Lord, I'm not eloquent. Neither before nor since. You've spoken to your servant, but I'm slow of speech, slow of tongue. And Moses continued, actually said, Lord, please send somebody else. And the anger of the Lord gets kindled against Moses. What is that? The anger of the Lord. It is a violation of God's nature. God wanted Moses to show up for who he was when he's consistently in shame saying, I'm not enough, I'm not valuable, what I have to say, I'll screw it up. And God's like, whoa. Just show up for who you are. It reminds me of Ezekiel 22 when God says, I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me. Now, stand in the gap, stand up. So, Scripture is filled with these ideas. So how do we do it? How do we stand up? How do we show up with our true selves, values, beliefs, opinions, and perspectives? Well, it's going to take a lot of courage. And courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of empowerment in the face of fear. Again, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of empowerment. I have the ability to make a choice. I have the ability as a free moral agent to actually do something in the face of fear. Courage is not denying how hard a thing's going to be. It's being empowered to say, I can tolerate this moment, this suffering, this challenge as I move towards solutions, as I do something. Courage reminds us that our difficult moments come from a fresh reality. We're living in a fallen world around us, and the reality is that we are flawed and imperfect ourselves, and we still are called to face them. And it's not until we step into the empowerment circuits do we begin to see a difference. Now, I remind you, biochemically, we have the ability to come up with a solution, and when we do and then move towards that solution, choose to move towards a solution in suffering, our brains will release dopamine, which is the feel-good hormone. It makes us feel alive. And when we don't do that, our dopamine is immediately being diminished. When we identify as a victim, when we are saying, I can't do anything, I'm stuck, I am a slave to the life I'm in right now, when you do that, you're going to lose focus, because dopamine is focus. You're going to lose your energy for execution, because that's what brings you the energy for execution. So what courage does is just reminds us, it doesn't matter if I'm flawed and imperfect. It doesn't matter if I can't execute it well. It doesn't matter that I live in a fallen world and things around me are screwed up. What matters is I'm a free moral agent. I'm a bearer of the image of God. I have God's Holy Spirit living in me, and I can do something. I can move towards this. When you do, your body, your brain releases the biochemicals to help you execute on it, and then you feel good and alive and fulfilled. So courage is the energy from empowerment that reminds us we are equally able to stand up and show up anyway, holding on to ourselves as we do what is difficult. Courage says you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have flawless execution or communication. Courage says even if you say it wrong, or if your opinion is mocked, it is still worth it all to show up and be who you really are. So all this showing up begins with preparation. Preparation is when we imagine a future and exercise our instincts to that end. Preparation is planning in advance how we will manage future anxiety that is in the past crippled us. Preparation requires us to acknowledge that our inner narratives and imaginations have exaggerated and catastrophized, giving us false reasons to stay hidden and stuck. I want to say that again. Preparation requires us to acknowledge that our inner narratives and our inner imaginations of self and life have exaggerated and catastrophized, giving us false reasons to stay hidden and stuck. So our first question in preparation for standing up is to ask ourselves, what do I fear? What do I fear? Do I fear disappointing someone? Do I fear being mocked? Do I fear feeling stupid? Why don't I show up? Do I fear, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill? Is that what I fear? Do I fear loss of finances, reputation, loss of trust or connection? When we spend time with each of these fears, we explore down into their roots and discover that these are generalized anxieties without definition. Generalized anxieties means we aren't sure who we are or who the enemy really is. So we're in this heightened arousal to fight hidden enemies that are lurking in every shadow. We're not sure where they are, so everything's an enemy. We haven't identified who the enemy is, so anything and everything is an enemy. And this is called generalized anxiety. And I gotta be truthful, it is exhausting. Many of you know what I'm talking about. So to move the anxieties from the general anxiety category to a specific category, we have to ask each one of the narratives deeper questions of meaning. So here it would go. What does it mean to me to be rejected or abandoned by a leader, a teammate, or a friend? If somebody rejects me, if I show up with who I really am and they reject me, or if I do it wrong or flawed or I say the wrong thing, what's it mean? What's the meaning of that deep within my heart and soul? Often what people will say is it means that I'm stupid. So it means that I'm stupid. What does that mean to me to be stupid? What if it's true? What does that mean? What's it mean if I truly am stupid? Well, it means I won't have a purpose and I'm useless. That's what a lot of times people will say. So my question to follow up on that is, what does that mean to me? The meaning. What does that mean deep within my heart and soul? What's it mean to me to have no purpose or to be useless? What if it's true? What does that mean? Well, it means that nobody will want me. It means that I won't survive. And I've got to say, ding, 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 bingo, this is the base fear, that you won't survive and you won't belong. So we begin to disrupt this fear by zooming out and asking ourselves this question. Do I know anybody? This is a disruption to these false beliefs. Do I know anyone who has rejected in a meeting? They were rejected by a teammate, but they continued to have good friends and thrived in life. And really, all we have to have is one example in real life. If we can just simply come up with one example of somebody who misspoke or was thought to somewhere be stupid. And the thing is when you go through the disruptions, you're able to see, and you're offering your brain another vantage point that just releases the tension. And now you've gone from everything as an enemy to no, the enemy is that I won't belong or I won't survive. And so then when you start thinking, well, what if they think I'm stupid? What if I am? So, maybe I am. But if I am stupid, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to survive. I'm going to belong. And I'm going to be empowered. So, I can do something with stupid. I can grow. I can be developed. I can read. I can listen. I can exercise myself.
Pastors, did you know that upwards of 70% of the men in your congregation are regularly accessing pornography, stuck in shame, torn in conflict, and therefore immobilized for zealous ministry? That's 7 out of 10. The problem is not going to go away. What are you doing to lead your men into wholeness? Porn and sex addiction is characterized by undesirable compulsive behaviors that feature incongruence with personal values, and it interferes with normal living, causing stress on their relationships with God, family, friends, loved ones, and possibly even their own work environment. Well, where do you send men to recover and become both whole and integrated? Red Ink Recovery offers a unique program exclusive to porn and sex-related addictions. Our clinical professionals, our psychologists and therapists, have created a transformative treatment process that collects the dots, connects the dots, and corrects the dots that have driven the addictions. Our approach heals the heart, restores the soul, and rebuilds the neuroplasticity of the brain. Our clients find their lives have been wildly marked by Christ as they are given a path for trust being rebuilt. And they are resourced for far greater relationships and intimacy than they have ever known before. All of our professional teammates are experts in the field of sexual addiction. They are all trained by Dr. Patrick Carnes and certified by the International Institute of Trauma and Addiction Professionals. Dr. Carnes is known as the father and curator of modern sexual addiction recovery as a movement. Pastors, we encourage you to recommend your men who struggle to come to one of our intensives. If you are just a simple man that struggles, maybe you're new to the faith or you don't even know what you believe about Christ, be encouraged to join us. We will honor your journey and give you the tools to live in wholeness. To find out more about our porn and sex addiction intensives and when the next one is, go to redinkrevival.com.
So by zooming out, we reframe the anxiety threat as something we have solutions for, and our brains release that tension around the fears, recalculating that this one issue is no longer a threat against our survival and belonging. In short, the reason we don't stand up or show up is because of a fear of survival and belonging. If we don't realize this, we're going to fabricate our standing up with aggressiveness rather than authentically presenting the calming presence of assertiveness. Again, we hyper react with aggressiveness or maybe even completely shut down. but it's not the authentically emotional presence and calming presence of assertiveness. So we may try to embody surface level standing up techniques. And this is what we do, right? We fix every anxiety on the inside of us as to, I'm afraid to show up, by using all these external techniques. If I use this mechanism, or I use that mechanism, or if I find this structure, or I follow this kind of plan. And it's all externals trying to manage the internal. And reality is, until we look down on the internal, nothing's going to get better. So we try to embody surface level standing up techniques and never deal with the fears that make standing up toxic. The issue is never about the actual technique, but the fears that drive our covert unconscious behaviors. And to address these fears, we need to ask ourselves, what do I think I need to be okay? And name it. Again, if we're going to address the fears, another approach or another layer to disputing and working through it is to ask ourselves, what do I think I need to be okay? What do I think I need? Name it. It's amazing how until you name it, your brain thinks that you need everything. You got to have everything. Whatever a thing is, I need it. But when you name what you need, well, the brain, according to Dr. Dan Siegel, a neuroscientist, says you got to name it to tame it. And when your brain frames it by naming it, all of a sudden it calms it. So what do I think I need to be okay? Do I need to not disappoint someone? Do I need that to be okay? Do I need not to be mocked? Is that what I need to be okay? What about feeling stupid? Do I need that? I have to have that to be okay? Do I have to not be wrong about whatever my opinion is? Or maybe I have to be a person who doesn't make a mountain out of a molehill. Or I have to have finances, reputation, trust, connection. What do you have to be okay? When we have these what ifs, because again, all these what ifs come to us of, what if this happens? What if I disappoint them? What if somebody mocks me? What if I feel stupid? When we have all these what ifs, as a Christian, this is powerful. We believe that Jesus died for that. So in response to help manage our anxiety, we can use the phrase, Jesus died, so I don't have to fear blank anymore. This is classic Steve Cuss, my friend Steve. Again, whenever you're having these what ifs, what if I am wrong? And what if I make a mountain out of a molehill? Well, as a Christian, we believe Jesus died for that. So in response to help manage our anxieties deep within our hearts and souls, we don't use mechanisms. We work down on the roots of the anxiety. And we can use the phrase, Jesus died, so I don't have to fear disappointing anymore. I don't have to fear people mocking me anymore. Jesus died for that. He died so that when I feel stupid, I don't have to fear it anymore. Jesus died so that I could be wrong in my opinion, or I could make a mountain out of a molehill, and I don't have to fear that anymore. Jesus died so that I don't have to fear getting fired anymore, losing finances anymore. Jesus died so I don't have to fear that. Jesus died so I don't have to fear losing my reputation or losing trust or losing connection. So then you ask yourself, what do I normally do when I feel other people's anxieties? What stage actor or trait do I tend to embody? So again, what do I normally do when I feel other people's anxieties? So if I show up and they begin to show anxiety, or I bring my own anxiety, what do? Do I become a stage actor? Again, this hypocrisy. Am I a fighter? Is that who I present myself? Or a wise sage? Or I have a superior intellect? Or maybe I just become a comedian? All of these are behaviors that we mechanistically have adopted because we fear. And so what do I normally do when I feel other people's anxieties? Maybe the traits are, what I have to do, what I default into is I yell. I yell when I feel anxiety. I yell, or I am passive aggressive. That's a trait. Or I overshare, or I over-explain. For me, when I feel anxious, And what I'm trying to do is meet that need, the deepest fear of I'm going to be rejected. I don't want to look like I'm stupid. So I have a tendency to use words to over-explain, because I think if I over-explain, if I can get them to understand, they won't reject me. Because if they reject my idea, I don't know that I can tolerate that at all. And then you have things like blaming and gossiping. So what do you normally do when you feel other people's anxieties? What traits come out of you? Again, do you turn and blame everyone else? Do you make excuses? Are you hyper encouraging? Another one of the things that I have defaulted over the years on is I default back to hyper encouraging. I get anxious and I got to tell everybody how amazing they are, yada, 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 yada. Well, I love this idea of I don't have to do that anymore because Jesus died for it. And then things like seeking affirmation. You know, as a preacher, one of the things I put pressure on Tina about over years was, and I got done preaching, I really wanted her affirmation about how amazing it was. I'd see other wives, they would be on social media and they would just blow up their husband on how amazing his preaching was, that it was life-changing. I'd be like, I want me some of that. And I had a hole in my heart. Well, all it is anxiety, and the answer is not affirmation. In fact, when you look at the love languages, so many people are like, this is my love language, you know, acts of service, and this is my love language, gifts, and this is my love language, words of affirmation, etc. The reality is those are just indicators. They're gauges to tell you you have anxiety. And in your mind, you've adapted that if you can have whatever one of those 5 things are, it will make you feel enough, valued, and that you're okay, that you belong, you'll survive. So when you look at these stage actor issues or traits, when we look at the what ifs as a Christian, just remember Jesus died for that. So in help, in responding to this anxiety, you can use the phrase, Jesus died so I don't have to fight anymore. I don't have to be a wise sage anymore. I don't have to have a superior intellect anymore. Jesus died for that. I don't have to be a comedian. If I, out of freedom, I want to be a comedian, or if I want to pursue knowledge, I can do all that from freedom. But Jesus died so I don't have to do it to make up for it. I don't have to yell anymore. Jesus died for that. I don't have to be passive aggressive anymore. I don't have to overshare or over-explain. I don't have to blame. I don't have to gossip. Jesus died for that. I don't have to make excuses. I don't have to be hyper-encouraging. Now, out of freedom, I can encourage people. I can receive affirmation, and yeah, it still feels good, but I don't have to have it anymore. So Jesus died so I don't have to be or do those things any longer. Now, I want to talk about taking courage to stand up, to show up. This is from Dr. David Schnarch's work. And we ask this question: what determines whether or not you make progress with your problems? Because here's the deal. It's not the size of the problem that you're struggling with. It's not how long your problem has existed. And it's not how bad things have gotten. The critical factor in making progress is your ability to take courage and do what needs to be done. People who have had problems for years have done amazing things in just a few weeks, days, or even overnight. And it always hinges on someone doing something previously ruled out as too scary, vulnerable, or difficult. In practical terms, here's some recommendations. First, take a giant step. If you're going to take courage, take a giant step. The longer your problems existed, the more you need to do something that announces with a kind, connected heart, this is no longer business as usual. This usually requires doing something you have felt is beyond you. The need for this leap of faith is built into all of our relationships. And then here's another: practice showing up. You know you have beliefs about certain things that you hold close to your private heart and soul. They're not big beliefs, not life-changing opinions. You simply believe that certain food tastes terrible, or that certain movies are uninteresting or even stupid to you, or certain people cause you to feel weird about things. So to practice showing up, this is how you practice showing up. In random times with your safest people, just announce, hey, I just want everybody to know I don't like blank. Or I love blank. And it's like, oh, nobody loves that. I do. And so you, with safe people, you practice, and what you're doing is you're tuning up your awareness and consciousness, your instincts around it. Or you could just randomly say, so-and-so causes weird feelings in me. You're like, well, as a Christian, isn't that judgmental? You know, if there is contempt for a person that you're in ill will trying to hurt them, that's different. But if you're reflecting on your own experience with safe people that you're comfortable with, this isn't for the mass audience, this is for safe friendships. So-and-so causes weird feelings in me. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that I'm trying to be aware of me and what I am doing intuitively.
Let me break in one more time and tell you about RedInkRevival.com. That is REDINK Revival.com. I want to encourage you to go there and sign up for our blog e-newsletter. Every month it will hit your inbox with a blog post and new special events that will ink your soul with revival.
Or you might say it's uncomfortable for me when, and fill in the blank. It's uncomfortable whenever somebody comes up to me and without invitation, they just go in for a hug. Maybe that's it. But what you're doing with safe friends is you're just beginning to announce things about yourself that is true of you, that you're wanting to tune in to, again, your instincts. It'll begin making you mindful of standing up, especially if you've had a lifetime of not being honest with who you are. And remember, it's always assertive and connected, not aggressive and attacking. Another thing, don't limit your efforts to what's easy and comfortable. The more you and your teammates, your spouse, family members, whoever it is, tolerate temporary discomfort, the quicker you can get to the feel-good part of healthy individuals and healthy functional teams and organizations. Again, when you get past the initial discomfort, which is temporary, the quicker you're going to get to the feel-good part of healthy relationships. So the bottom line is moving forward in any tough situation is going to involve doing what it takes to get the job done. And then the last piece here is create hope. Create hope. Seeing yourself or your teammate do something out of the ordinary to help things actually creates hope. So if you can see yourself or your teammate do something out of the ordinary to help, it creates realistic hope. And it's not easy, but that's how you and your relationships earn your own and each other's respect. And this is a vital thing for teams, families, and organizations. Now, I don't advocate for a baby step approach because taking significant action is key to resolving problems. And that is typically how people show up. They incrementally do, and then they're like the turtle's head. It just goes out slightly and then goes right back in. So I just encourage you to step up, step out, be you, and create opportunities for hope. Let it be reinforced by behavior. So, are there skills or exercises to help us take courage and stand up or show up? Yes. But the skills and exercises are not about managing external factors. The skills and exercises are about helping you and I manage our own anxieties before the interaction, in the interaction, and after the interaction. It's about us. It's about internal things. So one of the things is to begin, whenever you're going to show up on a thing, if it's a big item, set an appointment so that it is blocked out, it's clarified, and choose a preferable and undistracted time and place. I mean, that's just very obvious. Sometimes people try to show up in the least desirable times and places, and then it creates a backwash. It creates an undertow. It creates problems. Well, and then people are like, I knew I shouldn't have shown up. That Patrick Norris and Red Ink Revival, they're screwing us all over. I'm not going to listen to another thing they say. And it's like, whoa, slow that horse down. Another thing is use I statements. This is critical because it's about your anxiety, not them. So it's about me, not you. Avoid going on the attack. Use I like I experience, and you allow for vulnerability about your doubts, your emotions are being seen. They're valid and they're worthy of you expressing them. So an I statement is when you get intense or when you get angry, I begin to feel myself collapse. So what you're saying is I'm not attacking you for being angry. I'm reflecting to you how I experience you when you are angry. Or maybe you say, whenever I come up, it seems like there's this aggressiveness to me. This aggressiveness that you need something from me. You have expectations out of me. And so you use I statements. I statements are, when you come to me that way, it causes me for some reason to have anxiety, and then it makes me kind of pull back. I just want to invite you into that. I want you to know how I experience it. I experience it in this way. So you're using I statements. Attacking statements, aggressive statements are, you're always angry. When you're angry, I don't like you. Well, that's, again, not using I statements. That's actually using you statements. The emphasis is on you. And so, again, consider I statements. And another thing is be intentional with your words. This is what I want. Very clear, very concise, very direct. Or please don't do fill in the blank anymore. Or I don't want to fill in the blank. Oh, come on. Wait a minute. I'm holding on to me. I don't want to. Everybody's going. What's wrong with you? It could be a lot more wrong with me than you know about, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to. So what you're doing is you're being intentional with your words. So another thing is watch for emotional process rather than being stuck in the verbal content. The emotional process versus the relational or verbal content. In other words, in conversations like a husband and wife, often one of them will say something and they get completely distracted by the content verbally, and they don't see the emotions. So is anxieties rising? Anxiety is just at the very energy source. It's the generator. But what people are saying verbally are fronts. They're just fronts for protecting the anxiety or protecting my sense of self. So what you have to do is say, I hear what you're saying, but I'm perceiving that you're really anxious. You're angry. You're frustrated. Can I just sit with you in that for a moment? Can you trust me? And just for a moment, let's be safe together. So you're looking for emotional process rather than get stuck in the content. If it is a boss, you can say, I'm experiencing that you're angry, and is that what you want me to experience? You're like, does that really work? I've said it to police officer. I got pulled over and had an angry police officer. I just sat at a light too long. It was not very long, but long enough that he was already having a bad morning and he was coming at me. And I let him for probably, 5 minutes or so. And then I said, sir, you seem to be angry at me. I'm experiencing that you're angry. Is that what you want me to experience? And immediately he pivoted because he was completely unaware of his emotional anxiety and what he was expressing. So watch for the processes emotionally rather than the rational content. Stay focused on the goal. The goal is being that you present yourself as you really are. That's the goal. The goal isn't fixing anybody, controlling anybody, or getting them to do what you want them to do. So stay focused on your goal. And then allow empathy, where you feel what they feel, you see what they see. But don't let their empathy compromise your own true belief, intuitions, and opinions. Some people, they feel safer. It actually is a mechanism to manage their anxiety if they're highly empathetic. That if I actually lean in and I feel what you feel, it makes me now feel more connected and it satisfies my anxiety. So be careful. Be empathetic, see and feel what they see and feel, but don't compromise your true beliefs or opinions or intuitions or whatever about whatever it is y'all are talking about. And then stay individuated but connected. I hope all of that helps you guys. So that's it for today. And we've gone over so many of these artsy pieces of self-differentiation. And artsy is, first, self-differentiation means that you're self-defined. That means awareness, responsibility, and truth. That's the art of identity. But then self-regulation is you got to stand up. You got to stand up. And you got to hold on to you. You is the why. Next week, I'll hit you, and we'll talk a lot about things like loving yourself well, even when people disagree. When you've stood up, showed up, and people tell you you're stupid, people tell you or mock you or make you that guy, how do you tolerate or manage your anxiety? So we'll walk through that as well. Here at Red Ink Revival, we're creating wholehearted leaders through theology, psychology, and neuroscience. And I hope you're finding all of these podcast episodes helpful in all of your life. If you're a pastor and desire to do this work with your staff, I'd love to partner with you in the work. I'm guest speaking on Sundays. I'd love to come and guest speak for you if possible, as well as providing separate life-changing leadership, personal growth, and emotional wholeness experiences for you and your staff. I love to gather 6 to 10 people, or if it's in person, I can do a very large group. And if you reach out, we can customize our products and services to your context. But I'd love to help your staff be self-differentiated and to be healthy. You can contact me at Norris, norris.patrick@gmail.com. Well, everybody, have a great week, and we will see you next time.